After working with creatives for the last 11 years, I've heard one statement more than any other. I hate marketing. I get it. It can be painful trying to figure out how to market your book or movie or comic. When I started podcasting, I had no clue how to do any of it. I was afraid of doing it wrong, looking like an idiot or making a marketing mistake that I could not recover from. It can be paralyzing. Sound familiar? If it does, let me see if I can help you. I got my MBA in marketing, so you don't have to. Sign up for a free session today to talk about your marketing goals and to see if we're a good fit. If nothing else, you'll get some insights that might ease your mind. Go to southgatesmallbusiness.com and sign up for a free session today. Welcome to Alley Chats. I'm your host, Rob Southgate. Alley Chats is a virtual artist alley featuring interviews with artists, filmmakers, podcasters, writers, really any creative person you might find at a pop culture convention. My goal is to help draw attention to cool people and to hopefully help them get some new fans. I want this podcast to raise up these amazing people and to inspire you, the listener, to chase your dreams as well. You can follow Alley Chats on Facebook and join the conversation. I'll add more social media in the future, but for now, that's the best place to interact with me. You can also email me directly if you would like to be a guest or have a guest suggestion. My email is rob@smgpods.com. Blaine, I'm excited to talk to you today. I'm mostly excited because I know how to say your last name. It's Blaine Daigle is with me. Blaine, the reason I have you on is not only am I super excited to talk to you, but there's a purpose, as a lot of the podcasts this month have been. You're going to be at Books and Brews. It's an event with 40 authors, plus, I guess, somebody just told me there's more than that, at Double Clutch Brewing Company in Evanston, Illinois on August 3rd. This is your chance, those of you listening, to meet Blaine in person and get some signatures on these books and take a selfie and let him, scare you with some stories about the bayou or whatever he's going to do to you. So, Blaine, welcome. I'm really excited to talk to you. Why don't you tell people who you are, give them a little backstory?
Yeah, so my name is Blaine Daigle. I am a horror writer from Louisiana. Not much to me special. I'm a teacher by day, writer by night. I just finished publishing my third novel, A Dark and Endless Sea. I've got two more coming next year. And yeah, like you mentioned, I'm stuck down in the creepy old bayou of Louisiana.
Yeah, well, you know what? You said all the things I like. I'm a marketing professor. So, man, I get it. You think there's nothing special, but there's something super special to me. I love talking to teachers. It's a lot of fun. So, unless they're grading me, and then suddenly we'll have a bad connection. I'll just put that out there. So you're down in the bayou. I was looking at your books. You've got 3 books currently, correct?
Yes, sir.
So we've got The Broken Places, A Dark Rue, and A Dark and Endless Sea. All 3 of which, when I was reading the descriptions, I went, man, I wish I had read these before I talked to him because these look awesome. I was afraid it was going to be only, bayou because you've got so much creepy stuff going on down there. But you're not.
No, I'm very cognizant about wanting to kind of, spread out a little bit. I don't want to be, it's not that I don't love a good old Southern Gothic story. I do. And I love, Louisiana obviously is ripe with superstition and folklore that's just, tailor-made for horror. But, I didn't want to be that guy that, no disrespect to the king himself, but, I don't want to write all my stories in Louisiana.
Right. All the stories in Maine, you go, well, okay, he's the main guy.
Yeah. So, my first book is set in the Yukon. And then my second book, A Dark Rue, that's the one that is in Louisiana.
Yeah.
Then, my third book, Dark and Endless Sea, is set in the Bering Sea. So, I try to kind of branch out a little bit. I've got one coming up set in the Cascade Mountains of Oregon. I've got one, my fifth one that I'm almost done writing the rough draft of. It's set in on the shores of Lake Erie.
Oh, wow.
I mean, shoot, dude, I want to write one in West Virginia coal country. I want to write one in shoot. I would like to try to write one in like Egypt. Like I want to really kind of go out. And not to say that I won't ever come back to Louisiana. Obviously, it's very near and dear to my heart. But yeah, I want to branch out. I want to tell lots of different stories.
So like this first one, the Broken Places, takes place in the Yukon. Do you go and travel there so you can get a feel, or are you like you just do your research and you're like, boom, we're off to the races?
Oh God, I can't travel, man. I'm a teacher. I have no money to do that.
I know the feel. And a writer. You
Yeah,
just took you just took two swings at bat and missed.
right.
Yeah, I get that. I didn't know. Have you been to the Yukon?
No, I haven't. Luckily for me, we don't like we have so many more opportunities for research now than those poor writers back in the 70s, 80s, 90s had. So for the Yukon, first off, Google Maps exists.
Yeah.
So I can just drop that little pin guy. Now the Yukon has limited spaces where they actually have that, like the street view and all that.
Right, right.
What's there, it's
Well, they
pretty
have to be able to reach it with a car with a thing on
right.
top. So the Yukon, you're going to have a little trouble with that.
Right. So, I did with that, it was just finding the little spots and areas that I could actually do that. And then a lot of research, just watching people who are from the Yukon, like on YouTube videos or interviews, speak about what it's like there, then trying my best to replicate that as best I can.
Sure, sure. So the other part of that one is it takes place, you're hunting. Are you a hunter?
So I'm actually not. I grew
Interesting.
up, I mean, I've grown up around it my entire life. I know it. Um, I jokingly said in a podcast before, they asked me a very similar question. My response was like, I'm not a hunter. I don't consider myself any more holy because I'm eating meat that I didn't kill myself. But I know for a fact that if I shot the deer, I would feel like utter and complete trash the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And not just that, I have friends who are hunting and they're like, hey, like, do you want to go hunting? And my response to that is like, hey, it's 3 o'clock in the morning and it's 41 degrees. No, I do not. Like,
Right. Right. Yeah, no, I want to go out there at 41 degrees and sit in a blind up in a tree, like climb up there and yeah, I had a friend that he was a gourmet chef and we were up in Minnesota and there's a lot of hunters and that up there. And he was determined that we were going to go ice fishing. And there is nothing about that that sounds fun to me. You're
no,
sitting on the
no.
ice, freezing to death, uh, waiting. And you know what his response was? He said literally, "No, the fun is that you sit out there and you get drunk." I'm like, well, go to a bar where you're warm. I mean, if that's
I,
your thing.
when my sister got married, I was in my brother-in-law's wedding party. So his bachelor trip, we went down to a place called Point of Chien in Louisiana, which is now like it's by the south part of the state, by the like where the wetlands start.
Okay.
And we stayed in a boathouse, and he wanted to go kayak fishing. And I do enjoy fishing. And we went out, and now bear in mind, he decided to do this in November. So it was
You
the
put your
first
hand in and it freezes off and
yeah,
cracks
it's that
away, and you're like,
first
"Oh,
good
great."
cold. It's that first good cold snap that came
Yeah.
through. And I think what a lot of people don't realize about the South, especially, is that when it gets cold down here, it's not so much the temperature; it's the humidity in the air.
Yeah.
It makes it feel like a knife. It's so bad. And so that first cold snap comes in, and we go off like I want to say 5 miles into
Oh,
the wetlands, and where like you literally can't see like civilization around you. And it was like 36 degrees. The wind off the Gulf, which is not far away, is just whipping through. And I'm alone on a kayak and I'm fishing. And for about the first 30 minutes, I was like, this is insanely peaceful. Like I'm so calm. This
yeah.
is
Like
nice.
it's
I
a
like
great
that.
experience, right?
Right. And in 30 minutes, and I'm like, screw this, call the boat. I'm done. At one point, I like tucked my arms and legs into my jacket, like zipped it up and put the anchor down and took a nap and woke up only to find that the anchor had come loose and I had drifted
Oh,
a mile away.
oh no.
So now I'm adding manual labor to get my stupid self back to the rendezvous point.
Oh
Yeah.
my
So no,
God. So you're not really the outdoorsy type. You're not generally looking for that.
I mean, I like the outdoors, and I like to go camping and things like that. But when you get temperatures that are like
Yeah.
close to freezing, I'm like, hey man, look,
Yeah, but my outdoorsy friends, that's what they live for. They are like, oh yeah, it's awesome. And they put on all their stuff and they freeze to death. And I'm
well,
like,
I say that, but this is what I learned last year. We had a ridiculously hot summer last year.
okay,
And I mean, we were usually in Louisiana, you're looking at highs of the 96 to 98 throughout the summer, which is hot,
sure.
the humidity. But last summer, we're looking at 104, 105 with 90% humidity. It was miserable. Like I didn't
Okay.
cut my grass at all year because it was just dead. We had no rain.
Okay.
And I told myself I was never going to complain about the cold ever again. And then sure enough, this winter, I guess, because I think it was the El Nino year, we had a pretty cold winter and I enjoyed the hell out of it. I was out there in the cold, just enjoying it. So I don't know. Maybe I need to give the kayak fishing in the middle of the winter another shot. I might appreciate it more now.
You might have actually, yeah. Okay. All right. All right. I hear the big thing is drinking out there. So,
Oh yeah,
so what inspired you to start writing? I mean, you said you're an English teacher, right?
yeah,
Is this just been your whole life? You're just like, I'm all about it.
yeah. I've always wanted to do it ever since I could read. I've always enjoyed creating stories. And obviously, there's lots of different ways to tell a story, and depending on where you get it from, whether it's a movie or a video game or a book, you're going to get the story told to you in a different way, in a different format. Which is that's the different mediums. And for some reason, writing and books, literature have always been the medium where I felt I enjoyed receiving my story.
Sure.
Um, I always wanted to do it. Um, when I was a kid, I used to like go home and I would take a book and I'd put on like a piece of paper and I'd like draw the outline of it.
Uh-huh.
I'd literally like do a horrible sketch of what like this book's cover would one day look like. It's what I always wanted to do. And then I, grew up, went to college, started work, and you become really, really busy. And you start thinking that, all right, man, like that was a nice little dream, but it's gone now, blah, 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 blah. And I had this idea for a book and I stopped and started and stopped and started and stopped and started. And it just seemed like it was going nowhere. And then COVID happened. And all
Yeah.
of a sudden I found myself with nothing else to do. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to sit down and freaking do this thing. I'm going to write the story. And man, from there, it just turned into a fever pitch. I ended up writing, God, in the last calendar year, I've written 3. So
Wow.
it's just it's incredible how fast it came on me. But yeah, it started at a young age. I always wanted to do it, then never really had the opportunity. And then the moment the opportunity kind of came about, just took it.
Yeah, you took it. So was it horror? Was it always horror? Was that your thing or?
Horror from the time I was a kid, man. I grew up on Scooby Doo and Goosebumps,
Oh, yes.
and when I
Scooby-Doo,
was
man, what an
yeah,
influence that turned out to be for all of us, right?
I know, right? Stupid freaking talking dog and a stoner got us all right loving horror.
That's right.
But yeah, and then when I was about 7 or 8, I remember I started reading the I don't know if you remember, like they had the books called Animorphs.
Yeah. Oh,
And they
yeah.
had
I
cool
remember that.
covers. Dude, God, I absorbed those. And that's body horror. Don't let anybody tell you different. And then I got to college, and when I got to college, I was an English education major because I want to be an English teacher. And the unfortunate thing about college writing programs is the snootiness is through the freaking roof.
Yeah.
And they do not like any kind of genre fiction. They think it's like somehow less.
Mhm.
And when you're around it enough, you start to kind of get looped in. And for a
You start
while,
believing the lie on that one.
exactly. And for a while, man, I started to get to the point where I was reading nothing but literary fiction, which no knock on literary fiction at all. As a matter of fact, I've been told my books are more on the literary side, but it was, I'm sitting there reading these books, and despite all those little voices from college coming back, it was dark fiction that always brought, even everything I read had a little bit of a dark tint to it. Um, of all the classic writers, I was reading Hemingway, blowing people up in wars left and right, and having
Right, right.
and the ending of Farewell to Arms being the darkest freaking thing I've ever read in my entire life. And then I happened to get a hold of Adam Neville's The Ritual.
Oh, yeah.
And
Good
I
one.
read it. And when I tell you that sucked me back, it was like an old friend. And at that point, I was, I guess, far enough removed from college where I was like, man, screw all that crap. Like that would like forget that.
Yeah.
And I just indulged myself from that point on. And what I found was there's so like even with horror, there's so many writers who are doing incredible things with words, with language, who are writing sentences that these literary published authors could only dream of writing. Um, and that was the final thing for me. It was like, man, you know what? That was wrong. Screw that crap. Consume the scary stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because two sides, same coin. Uh, in all the marketing stuff I went through, right? So I've got an MBA in marketing. Uh, it's kind of the same thing where the academic side of it is treated so differently.
Yeah.
And you had this real dichotomy of people talking about, social media and all that, but the professors didn't understand any of it. So they
Right.
were poo-pooing it. But then on the social media side, you had the younger people that didn't understand that actually you kind of have to know all of it. And then I was
Right.
stuck in the middle. Uh, it was a very weird thing. And some of the stuff I rejected until I got out. And then it was like same thing, man, where you just start going, hold on. This makes sense. I like this. There's nothing wrong with liking something, right?
Right.
I love that though. Were you a kid, since you were drawn to horror, were you a kid that was afraid of stuff early on and that's what drew you to it? Or was it the opposite? You were just like, I'm going to dive in, I'm going and I love every bit of it.
I think I was just more drawn to it. Like I would get scared watching stuff, and I would get scared reading stuff, but it was like a drug drip. I couldn't get enough of it, and I don't know if I enjoyed getting scared. As I got older, for me, it became a situation with horror, especially where I kind of came to the realization that horror is, in a lot of ways, a lot more fearless than other genres. And because of that fearlessness, a lot of horror can be much more honest.
Yeah.
And as someone that I crave authenticity and I crave honesty in the stuff that I consume, that struck me because whereas I would never feel like a horror writer was holding back. So for me, that was, and as a kid, I started, I graduated from Goosebumps to Stephen King, earlier than I should have. But my parents,
Okay. Name a horror author that doesn't say that. Like, okay.
you're right.
So it was earlier than I should have.
You're right. But like my parents were awesome. They encouraged me to read. Both my parents are teachers as well. They
Mine
encouraged
too.
me to read. And they knew about the content in Stephen King's books. I probably started reading when I was about 11 or 12. And they trusted me enough to handle it and to ask them questions if I had any.
Okay.
Now, where their mistake came into play was when I started going away from Stephen King. I was like, I want more. You start off with King and Kuntz, like that's just the general gets.
Yep. That's the entryway.
Right. So I'm standing in a Books a Million looking at different books, and I'm looking for another creepy author. And I think my parents kind of always thought that King was like the extreme. So I came across Richard Lehman.
Oh boy.
And it was The Woods Are Dark. And it was like the what was it? The one where like his kids like found all like the deleted scenes and like put it in and released it. So I got it and my parents didn't think anything of it. And I went home and read it. And I was just like, whoa, what the hell? Whole new world.
Want more shows like this? We've got a lot more on the Southgate Media Group Patreon page. Some free, some paid. Plus, there's exclusive content for subscribers only. Follow the link in the show notes or look up Southgate Media Group on Patreon and check out the cool stuff we're doing over there. You won't be sorry. On August 3rd, 2024, Books of Horror is presenting Books and Brews, at Double Clutch Brewing Company in Evanston, Illinois. There will be over 40 horror authors for a book signing and meetup from 10 a.m. until 4 p.m. that day. Meet your favorite authors, discover new authors, meet books of horror friends in real life, including the author I'm talking with on this podcast. Oh, and I'll be there too. This is an all-ages event. Food, alcohol, and non-alcoholic beverages will be available. No outside food or drinks will be allowed. Search for Books of Horror Presents Books and Brews on Facebook events for more information, or click on the link in the show notes. I hope to see you there. Well, that was for me. I back then read Stephen King like crazy, and actually my thing was in his books. A lot of times he'll reference other books because they're the books he likes. So I would always go to the library and pick these up, and he recommends some hard stuff.
Yeah, he does.
And then you read it and you're like, what did I step into? But you know what? I was the kid who was a scaredy cat, like I always wanted to go to the horror stuff, and I was always like crying, right?
Yeah.
Until it flipped, and then it was like, okay, I got it. I'm cool.
Yeah.
But King was the easy way in because it was scary, but it was like, okay, there's children in the corn. I'm okay. They're not really in the corn. And if they are, I'm not in Iowa.
Right.
Like
the clowns in the cell, in the clowns in the storm drain, but I don't have to go in the storm drain.
Right.
I can look at Georgie and go, what the hell are you doing, dude? Like, stop.
Yeah, well, I always figured with that one, I'd be smart enough to, like, when his brother's watching him, I'd be smart enough to go, I'm not going to go be a big, tantrumy baby and go out there by myself and go talk to a clown in a storm drain. I'm going to bring somebody with me who might say, is this a good idea? And that might actually prevent me from getting my arm eaten off.
Now it's blown my mind. And I know I'm not the first one to say this, but one of the things that I have noticed is, and this is, and I'm not a huge Stephen King fan. I have ones that I like and a lot that I don't.
Sure.
But one of the things that I think he does really, really interestingly is certain books of his will hit you differently depending on what time you read it. And the one that gets brought up all the time, and it gets brought up all the time because it's true, is Pet Sematary. When the first time I read Pet Sematary, I'm a 16-year-old kid. It scared the shit out of me.
Me too.
Then I read it again as a 28-year-old father, and it scared the shit out of me in a completely
different way, right?
Which was so much more horrifying.
Yes.
Like it went from I'm so scared, but I'm entertained to I need to put this book down for a second.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe go check, make sure my kid's okay in his crib.
Yep.
So, I mean, kudos to him for being able to pull that off. That's really, even it to an extent is like that, because you do get to see childhood fear and adult fear manifested within a similar, a singular timeline.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point. Especially when you think about so many authors, so many horror fans, since he was the entry point, you did read it younger. The perspective changes over time.
Right.
And what his horror elements, you're right, they do seem to change. Because Gage's death, spoiler, as a father is like one of the hardest things to read in the world. And then to have him keep coming back up, and you're just like, please stop.
Yeah.
Have you read Cabin at the End of the World?
I have not. Unfortunately, I do know exactly what happens because, it's one of the things where like, hey, I wanted to read this book. Let me get on Goodreads like a moron.
Yeah,
I did.
Don't do that.
And the first review just spoils everything. It's just like, God damn it. Like, why?
You know what? Still worth the read. It's a phenomenal book. Yes, I would. And you know what? It might actually be easier to read what we're talking about, which I'm not going to discuss, if you know it, because for me, it was like somebody shot me from the bushes.
Mm-hmm.
When I got to that. And in fact, like page 170, here it is. And you go, like the whole world just went tilt. And I remember I picked up my phone. I literally had to put the book down and like catch air. And I picked up my phone, and I had already been writing to Paul Tremblay a little bit, just back and forth a little bit here and there. We both like punk rock music, so, whatever. And I get to that page and I said, hey, Paul, I'm reading Cabin at the End of the World. Oh, hey, enjoy it. I said, I just read page 170 or whatever. And I said, I got 2 words for you. F you.
Yeah.
And he wrote back, he was like, yeah, it's rough, right? I was like, it's not rough. You are the worst. You are the worst person on the planet. I'm going to continue reading it now. Thank you so much for this
I,
book. It's
yeah.
great.
Recently I read These Things Linger by Dan Franklin.
Oh, I haven't read that.
Oh,
Is
it's
that another one?
fantastic. There's a spot in that book. I'm not going to spoil what happens, but there's a
Don't
spot,
spoil it.
and I had a message chain going with Andrew Nyberg at the time, and I'm just talking to him. I'm saying, hey, I'm reading this. He recommended it, and I text message. I was like, dude, I had to stop. I
Oh,
had to put the book down, and I had to like actually walk away and remove myself from the situation. Because what I've man, like I with having kids, man, the kid stuff is hard.
hard. Yeah.
And that's
No.
and that's what it frustrates me a lot too, because like, for instance, Aaron Beauregard has that book Playground.
Mhm.
And it got, and this is the part that gets me, is like, I know for a fact that I don't handle kid stuff well. So I'm gonna actively avoid things that I know for a fact are gonna do this.
Okay.
I'm getting better at it. Like the older my kids get, the more I can take it. I'm getting back in.
Sure.
Watch these idiots on freaking like the internet. Like, they'll get a copy of Playground and then they'll like rip it to shreds in a video.
Yeah.
Like, well, I didn't know this stuff happened in this book. Like, did you see the cover? What did you think was going to happen? Like, I'm not really a splatter fan, but I'm smart enough to go, yeah, that's probably
That's
not.
probably what's going to happen here.
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't read that.
I was just discussing this with somebody, uh, talking about these authors, these entry point authors, and I asked if they read Robert Bloch, because that was kind of where it was King, and then there was some other people, and then I went to Robert Bloch, and I was like, what am I reading? Like, crazy stuff. But he had a book, I think it was called Kidnapped or something, but there was a kid on the cover in the back of a car looking out, screaming. If you don't know what you're going to get in this book, you are a moron.
Right.
And that was the one book cover I can think of that gave me a nightmare. It was awful. And I was a kid. And now I don't even want it in the house because I'm a father, that it's like, no.
Right.
No.
Exactly.
Video games do that. There's a game. See, this is going to be a terrible interview because I can't remember the name. Are you a gamer at all?
Yeah, I play.
Okay. There's a game that is a crime game, but man, it's horror. Where the guy's kid gets kidnapped.
Heavy Rain.
Heavy Rain.
Yep.
That is the most disturbing game.
That was hard, man.
Hard. The scene when he loses the kid, and you keep seeing the red balloon.
Yes.
And you're like, you go chasing it, and then it's a wrong kid, or it moves, and you're like, oh my God. Oh my God. And then the other scene in that one is the one when you're in the apartment. And you go to the apartment a few times and things are normal, but you see a shadow, but it is so in the background. When I had to go back and play the scene again to see this. And you're like, there's somebody in the damn apartment with me.
Yeah.
That was like reading a book though, when I was playing that. I kept having to, like you said, put it down.
Yeah.
This is too much.
Structured like that. It's structured like that.
That's an amazing game. And that's what I love in horror. That same thing that, like, yeah, I can get down with a slasher. I could get down with pretty much any monster movies. Love them.
Right.
But when we get down to like, hey, I want to show you a scary movie. One of our favorites is Stir of Echoes.
Oh, great movie.
Yeah, and it's like, to me, I was like, oh, I don't know if this is a horror movie, but then over time, I'm like, this is a horror movie. Copycat. You ever see that one with Sigourney Weaver?
I know it, but I have not seen it.
You must see it. You will absolutely love it. I've already got a beat on you, man.
Well, I've said for a long time, like, people ask, like, hey, what's your favorite horror movie or what's your favorite horror book? What's the best?
I was about to ask you. Tell me.
For me, the best horror story ever told is a video game. It's Silent Hill 2.
Oh my God, what a great game.
Like, that is the best story. That's the best horror story ever told, as far as I'm concerned.
And the way it unfolds. I mean,
and the thing of it is too, is like, I go back to my head to all those freaking college professors, and I'm telling myself, you cannot tell me that story does not have literary merit.
Right. Exactly.
It's crime and punishment.
Have you played the Red Dead Redemption games?
That I actually have not, and I think the only reason I haven't was because by the time that those games really got to the point where I could play them, I'm in full
Too
time dad
busy.
mode because
Yep.
I have 2 kids, 5 and 3, or 6 and 3 now. So it's just like, man, I struggle to be able to find like lengthy amounts of time where I can
Yep.
really just sit down and lose myself in a game.
I've got a stack of shame sitting here. I understand. When I went into my bachelor's, one of my triggers was I had to play Red Dead Redemption. I just had, that was what I had to play. And it was like I would basically, there's a point where you can ride a train. I just rode a train for hours. You do nothing. But that's another one. I argue that the storytelling in this, the literary quality, and especially when you get to the end and the way it plays out, is one of those touchstones for me.
Yeah.
Like if I was a writer, I would want to be able to write something that had the impact that the end of that game had.
See, that's me with The Last of Us. Like the end of The Last of Us was just like a watershed moment for me in storytelling where I was just sitting there thinking to myself, I was like, oh my God. And I just kind of sat there. And then of course I
Yeah,
had to look it up. And people argue about, you know, did she know, did she not? Was he right? Was he wrong?
right.
And to me, the coolest part of that is the answer is none of it matters.
Yeah,
And I was like, it's poignant in a way that a lot of stuff just isn't, man. Like
yeah.
I think that's a medium that needs a lot more respect for its storytelling ability than it gets.
Well, when you get to those types of games, which are my favorite types, I think that over time those are going to get that type of respect because people that are younger, they're playing these, they're getting immersed in it, they're going to start understanding what quality they've got there.
Right.
You know, End of Red Dead Redemption is one of those. When I got to the end, I thought I effed up the game,
Really?
and I kept restarting that last part over and over, looking for how can I change this.
Yeah.
And here's the crazy thing: you feel every time like you can.
Yeah.
And I go, okay, I'm going to do this, and this is going to, and it doesn't matter. And then
Nope.
the best part of this, now we talk about sequels, and a lot of times sequels are bad. They're just a rehash. Red Dead 2, not the same thing. And there's a payoff from the first one in Red Dead 2 that makes you go, my God, this story is just the richest tapping into type story. And you know what? We talk about horror. Now they did an overt thing there. They did the zombie thing, right?
Right.
But really, when we start talking genres and horror is kind of interwoven in so much now.
It really is.
And you watch these and you're playing them and you're like, okay, there is absolutely horrific themes and scenes going on here. It doesn't have to be a monster in a box, you
Right.
know. It doesn't have to be serial killer lives next door, although those are always terrifying to me. Uh, I got a good question for you because I have an answer for mine, but nobody's listening to me get interviewed. Uh, can you think of a moment in a movie that you would consider the most terrifying moment in a film?
Can
Like
it be
if it comes on, you're done.
can it be a series?
It's a moment.
It's a moment. I'm talking about can it, instead of a movie, could it be like a Netflix
Oh
series?
yeah, sure, sure. Lay it on me.
Episode 3, Haunting of Hill House.
I was gonna say
There's two
the
moments in
car,
there
the
actually. One is
car.
the jump scare that had me punching the air,
Yeah,
which is only scary because you care about the characters so much that you're so invested in their conversation that you don't even see it coming.
right.
But the scariest part for me is the scene where Luke's ghost, the tall man,
Yes.
is floating down the hallway and his cane is hitting the ground, but his feet are not. And I don't know what it is,
Nope.
but
Me
that
too.
scene unnerved me in a way that you could show me all the blood, guts, gore in the world. That was just
It's a moment that just
oh
it eats you, man. It
yes,
eats you. If even if the jump scare hadn't happened, which is one of the finest jump scares of all time, even if that hadn't happened, we would still be talking about that scene with the tall man because
that and the
it's
bent
something
neck
about the
lady.
feet not touching and the cane. There's
Yes,
something about and the little bit of audio to it. It's just awful. Oh, it's so
that
good.
that and the bent neck lady are things that I will always remember. I'll be 80 years old, pumping out my last few books, and those two things will still be in my head swimming around. There's just so, and I don't think it's so much just the visual of it, because the visual is part of it. Like you said, like
Right, right.
off the ground with the cane on it. There's the emotional connection between Luke and what he's going through. And
When
that
and you're Luke at that point, right?
exactly, yeah.
You're Luke, and when you see it and it's now real, it's manifested,
Right.
and it's so weird, it's terrifying.
And then there's just the idea, like going to like the bent neck lady, haunting a field house just in general.
Oh
Just
yeah,
that idea of God, I can't say next part because they'll spoil it. So I'm just gonna
yeah.
cut it.
Let's not say it. And the book too. The book when you finally read the book, because I hadn't read the book, I knew the story or whatever. I'd seen the adaptations, but when you read the book is like so brilliant.
Yeah.
You understand why there's a Shirley Jackson Award. You know?
I wish more creatives that are adapting works did it like that.
Yeah.
Where they said, instead of trying to make a copy and paste like paper mache kind of imitation, I'm going to take all of those key ideas and key elements, and I will craft them in a way that tells a wholly unique story that shares the same DNA
Yeah.
as something classic. Because all these classic stories, man, we've seen them adapted 8,000 times.
Right. Right.
So I wish, man, I wish more people would do it like that, where they would take the ideas and the themes and really lean into them to create something, wholly unique like that.
Yeah, I didn't find the next series he did, that's Turn of the Screw. I didn't find that one as a compelling, but he did the same thing. He swung for the fences with that one. It's Mike Flanagan's the director on those.
Yeah.
I thought that one was good, but I thought his Hill House was a
I didn't
masterpiece.
yeah, I didn't think it was as good as Hill House, but there was one part in Bly that did strike me hard. And I guess it's because as a dad, it was the faceless little boy ghost when you realize why he exists in that last
Oh,
episode,
yeah.
where it just absolutely just crushed me. And I was just like,
Yep.
oh my God. Like I to the point of tears are almost coming out of my eyes.
Yep.
As a matter, Flanagan's made me cry at least 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, Flanagan's amazing. He's
Midnight Mass, he made me cry.
Midnight Mass is brilliant. And he's also doing he's got The Exorcist now.
I saw that.
And people are kind of like, "Oh, why are we doing it?" It's like, "No, it's Mike Flanagan doing it."
Did you see The Last Exorcist? That's why we're doing this.
I've not seen it yet.
That's why we're doing this. It's not good.
It's not the trailers were
No,
awesome in it.
no, it's
Oh, Mike
not.
Flanagan's going to get it right. He's going to get it right. Did you ever see Oculus? That
Oh,
kind of
oh my
first one?
God, loved it.
It's genius.
Oculus and the relationship between the brother and the sister was a big part of why I chose to have a brother sister protagonist in A Dark Room.
Fantastic. Welcome to the Blaine and Rob Mike Flanagan Love Podcast. Yeah, and he's won another one that we were watching Oculus, and I tagged him in something in Twitter, and he started writing me.
Awesome.
I was like, he was just an awesome person.
He's got another one that's so underrated. It's called Before I Wake.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
It's about a kid who's, I can't remember if he's orphaned or if it's just what the deal is, but his dreams are manifested into reality.
Wow.
And at first, it's like this, wondrous kind of thing. But then you realize that if the dreams are manifested in reality, so are the nightmares and so is the trauma he's gone through.
Oh, God.
And it just shifts. And in typical Flanagan storytelling, it's freaking like it pulls at your heart.
Yeah.
You were so invested. You care so much about him. And man, it doesn't get as much love as it should. It's on Netflix.
All right. Books and Brews, Double Clutch Brewing Company. It's in Evanston, Illinois, August 3rd. Come and meet Blaine. I have a feeling I'm going to end up at a dinner with you or something, or a coffee shop, because we are not done talking. We talked about Mike Flanagan all this time, but there's so much more. And I didn't even get to tell you my moment in the movie, and I'm going to make you wait. No, I'm not. It's one line. It's in The Strangers. Just when she says, "Why did you do this?" And he said, "Yeah, because you're home." That is the single most terrifying moment in any film. And I mean, I've seen them all, except that one Mike Flanagan you just mentioned. And it didn't even scare me when I saw it. My wife was terrified afterwards, but it's
that one.
time.
You think about it later,
it's just burned in there.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. So anyway, Books and Brews, come meet Blaine, buy his books, follow his newsletter. It's really good. Support him on social media. The best thing you can do is share and comment on his things and write reviews. That really helps the authors. And Blaine, I got one final question for you
What you got?
because you're here. No, I got one final question for you. So, have you been to Chicago?
I have. I'm a big Chicago Cubs fan. Me and my wife every now and then get to Chicago to catch a game.
Excellent. Okay, so this is how I formulate the question then. So I guess it was two questions because I had to ask that. What is it you're most looking forward to when you come up here?
Ooh, honestly, like meeting a lot of the authors. There's gonna be a lot of good people there that I'm not even gonna lie. I'm gonna fanboy over.
Oh,
Getting to meet Ronald Mouthy, for instance.
yeah.
Uh, just being able to meet these guys and just be around them, pick their brains maybe a little bit, just talk and hang out. Also, pizza because it's Chicago.
But which pizza? Look, this might be a deal breaker between you and I.
So I have a theory. So my thing is with deep dish. When you first get it, it is incredible.
Uh-huh.
But you better eat it fast because it is not microwavable at all. I learned that the hard way last time I went.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited to go back. I've actually never been as far north as Evanston. We always usually stay around the Elgin area
Okay.
when we go into Chicago because close to the north side. But
I know the Elgin area super well. I was just there last night. In fact, my friend owned a Doctor Who cafe there.
oh, nice.
Yeah, he died a couple years ago, but yeah, we did 5 years of podcasting on it. It's called the Blue Box Cafe. Let's give them a shout out.
There we go.
Yeah, look, I'm even going to hold up the mug. The Blue Box Cafe in
Nice.
Elgin, Illinois. So, okay, so what pizza up there? What are you thinking? Or do you know?
God, I can't think of the freaking name.
Lou Malnati's?
There was two places. One place was in Elgin, and it was a big old sports bar. Like you walk in, they got like White Sox, Cubs, Bears memorabilia, Bulls all over the place.
Okay.
And theirs was good.
Danny's on Douglas. Is that what that one?
Maybe I don't know, man. It's hard. But the last time we went, we ate at a place a little bit closer to Chicago, not quite as far out as Elgin was, and it had a big outdoor eating space. And not only was the pizza incredible, but they had like this breadstick kind of appetizer that blew me the frick away. And it was so nice. I mean, we like you have to understand, dude. We went in Chicago in July and June, and the first time we ever went with my wife, we got out the car and it's like 64 degrees. And you don't understand. For us, that's like AC turned on all the way.
Right.
And
like, it's freezing.
And like the next day, we're going to a Cubs game. And the forecast is like, oh man, it's a hot one, Chicago. And I checked their weather, it's like 81 degrees, 5% humidity.
You're like, somebody still got the air on.
And we're sitting in Wrigley, and all these Chicagoans around us, like waving themselves off. And we're just sitting there like, this is incredible. Feels like November.
Like, this is perfect weather.
So yeah, maybe what I'm most looking forward to is getting out of the devil's armpit that is the Gulf Coast in summer and getting some decent weather.
Nice. So remind me when we meet, because we're going to definitely talk. I have a Wrigley Field story that I don't want to share on here. It's gross and it's great. So I'm going to save that one. So we got to talk Cubs at some point. I actually lived, if you're in Wrigley Field and you look towards the lake, there was one tall building. That's where we live. We used to live there. I could lean out on my balcony and see the green of the field. And in the summer, we'd be working in there, and you could hear, like, when there was a game, you'd hear, they're like, yeah, Cubs just scored. It was awesome.
That didn't happen very much.
No, it did not. All right. That's it. Everybody follow Blaine. I'll put it in the show notes where you can follow him. Otherwise, come to Books and Brews and meet the guy in person. Get some signatures. It would really help me out if you would rate and review this show on whatever platform you use to listen to this podcast. Good reviews help others find the show, which ultimately helps the people I've interviewed get more exposure. You can connect with me on social media or via email. All the links are found in the show notes. If you like this show, you'll like other shows from Southgate Media Group as well, such as Read Between the Lines, a podcast featuring insightful interviews with some of the hottest authors out there, or Go Fund This, a podcast where we interview people about their amazing crowdfunding projects. You can find our shows wherever you listen to podcasts, so give them a try. And if you like what you hear, don't forget to rate and review our shows. It really helps other people find them and keep our team inspired. Alley Chats is a production of Southgate Media Group, hosted, produced, and edited by me, Rob Southgate. Thanks again for listening to Alley Chats.